The last one, I said I'll give you a little prophecy. For me, this is like too amazing. But for somebody that's an atheist who doesn't care, just say, who cares? Who won't listen. But standing here right now, could anybody now tell me about an event? Let's talk about the Kennedy assassination. I happened to see Kennedy the day before he was assassinated. I was there in 2 days before he was assassinated. He came to Houston, then he went to San Antonio, then he went to Dallas. And this was the time of year that it happened, by the way. And here's an amazing thing. Today, even now, on the bestseller list, you got people out here writing books about who actually killed him. Even now. Even now. So many years, and they're still talking about who killed him. When they had the 25th anniversary of it, I went there at the same spot where it happened, because so many other people did too, with our cameras. We used to have a TV show, and I went there and we did our thing, and we talked about cameras and things like that. But I noticed how many people had all these theories. Now suppose today, in this time, in this place, right here in Malaysia, somebody stood up and said, I want to predict something to you. I said, go ahead. He says, in the future, somebody's going to find this magic bullet, because there was a magic bullet that killed him. I don't know if you know about this story. They said it was only one shot fired. Other stories of spectators that were there said there were many. It said it was raining bullets. Okay? But they wanted to be sure everybody believed there was only one shot. Till they started asking questions. Well, how did it also hit John Connally, who happened to be the governor of the state of Texas? They said, well, he was also riding in the same car. So the bullet went in to John Kennedy from the back of the head, they said. Of course, if you see the Magruder film, you'll see that it actually burst his head back out. But anyway, I'm sorry if it upset some of you to talk about this, but they said the bullet came out here. Well, actually it went in here and came out there. That's why it came from the grassy knoll. But anyway, if it went here, came out there, then it has to go into Connally. But also there was the bullet went around in his ribs. So it went in here, over there, down around his rib. Oh, and it came out here. What is this? And they called it the magic bullet. Then they said they found it. Where? On a gurney in the hospital. Somebody, they said, when they took it out, they must have forgot to take it off the gurney. Like, really? Are you serious? A responsible doctor taking care of the President of the United States went, who needs that thing? Just leave it. You know and I know, I'm sorry, that doesn't work. But they found it, and they entered it as evidence to say that that is the bullet, right? That's the magic bullet right there. The problem was they found it in the hospital where the president was. Remember, it was supposed to go through Connally last, and he was in a different hospital. Whoops. That's why it's a super magic bullet. So now suppose that, based on all the stuff I just told you, these are facts. Suppose now somebody told you in the future they're going to find the real bullet, and they're going to be able to prove without a doubt that the one that really pulled the trigger was not Lee Harvey Oswald, but it was the one who killed him. The one that killed Oswald. That went down into the jail with a gun, walked up in front of all the policemen and shot him and then run off. That's pretty cool stuff. They caught him, but that's beside the point. If somebody told us that in the future, like let's say 100 years from now, that we're going to be able to solve the whole thing based on this bullet, and he wrote a book about it, we'd be like, yeah, right, just another book, right? But how would it be 100 years from now when the people found the bullet, the real one, and were able to determine without a doubt exactly who did it? And in fact, it was exactly what he said. You'd have to wonder, because how could a man living today, here, right this minute, especially a young guy, let's say, didn't even know about it, predict something like that in the future, but it happened before? Would you agree that that's pretty amazing? Is that amazing or no? That's pretty cool. But maybe he, maybe somebody told him, and maybe he buried it somewhere, and maybe. Okay, now watch this. In this book. In this book is the story of Moses. Musa, alayhi salam. The children of Israel have left Pharaoh in the land of Egypt, and they're running away from Pharaoh. Now what's happening is, and it tells us in here, that they've got to the Red Sea. They can't go any further. The Red Sea is right there. Now here comes Pharaoh and his army. And some of the people, without very much faith in Moses, are starting to curse him and say, yeah, why didn't you leave us where we were? At least we were saved. Now they're going to kill us. Oh, man, we should have stayed there. Everything was okay. You messed us up. Right? Then Allah commanded Moses, strike the water with your stick. And he did. And the water split. And they walked through on dry land all the way to the other side. Pharaoh saw that. And he still didn't believe. Looking at the water split, he still went in with his army. And then what happened? Allah closed the water on it and drowned him. This story is no different really, except for the hitting the stick. It's the only part is different from the Bible. In the book of Exodus, which is the second book in the Old Testament. So you said, and your point. Many Christians and Jews today think that's sort of like a fable. Maybe they were just crossing over the Nile River. They've said it. I've heard them say it. Could be, let's don't exaggerate. People back then, they didn't know stuff. They said this, they said that. This book says without a doubt that's what really happened. There's no doubt. So, when was Moses? 5,000 years ago? Somewhere in that proximity? At least 3,000 years ago? Rounded off, anywhere between 3,000 and 5,000. Most people say about 3,000, but it's okay. That's cool for you, yes? Pharaoh was lost at sea. He drowned. He drowned. In the late 1960s, in Paris, France, one of the professors, authors, doctor, surgeon, expert in his field, was called to Cairo, Egypt, to help do some forensic study on a mummy that they had found. A strange mummy because they said it wasn't embalmed the normal way. It was more like pickled, some people said. I haven't seen this, so I can't exactly tell you more than what I've heard people say. But for sure, they found it, and he said, oh my God, when he looked at it, he said, this one died from drowning. This one is not somebody who just died and they embalmed him. He drowned in salt water. Red Sea is salt water. So he said, this could be Pharaoh of the time of Moses. But how could a body have survived like that? You say, well, mummies survive. Okay. But they know that he drowned. Huh. But what's amazing here is the Egyptians told him, so what? He said, so what? We have this in our Bible. There's somebody called Moses. They said, we know all about Moses. Said, but Pharaoh, this is a real story. They said, we know, it's in our book. He said, what book? He said, the Quran. He said, what's that? So he learned the Arabic language so he could understand what's being said. And he came to understand that exactly what he had discovered had been prophesied in this book 1,400 years before. Allah said that he would preserve Pharaoh in his body as a sign for all the people, for all the world to see. And that body now is on tour going around the world for people to look at Pharaoh.